At sunrise, they came for my farm. 4 black SUVs, a flatbed tow truck, and a white van with a gold crest that read Maple Ridge Homeowners Association Compliance Division. They parked like they owned the place. A woman in a blazer, Cheryl Whitman, the HOA president, stepped out with a smile so stiff it looked glued on. "Mr. Carter," she called, "by order of the Maple Ridge HOA, we are taking possession of this property today." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with nosy neighbors or a pushy board. They were here to take everything. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. Instead, I reached into the old red toolbox on my porch, pressed the hidden button, and whispered to myself, "Thunderbolt, Stage 1. Cameras along the fence line whirred awake. Locks snapped shut. Ranger, my chocolate lab, trotted to his spot by the gate like a soldier who already knew the drill. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Cheryl smirked like this was already a done deal. "Sir, please cooperate," she said. I stared at her and replied, calm as I could. "You set 1 foot past that gate without a court order, and every second of it goes straight to the county, the state, and a judge. I'm complying with the law. Are you? Let me back up a little. My name's Dan Carter. Folks call me Dan. I'm a former Army radio man who bought 23 acres outside Maple Ridge because I wanted peace. I planted trees, raised vegetables, built a barn, and spent evenings listening to owls. I help neighbors fix their tractors, leave free eggs in a box by the road, and try to live quiet. Kindness is a crop you plant it and hope it spreads. For a while it worked, until Maple Ridge HOA decided my farm was disruptive. It started with a glossy flyer in my mailbox. "Welcome to Maple Ridge, a premier HOA community." It showed manicured lawns, splash pads, clubhouses, and fine print about community harmony. The map, it had a boundary line nudged just enough to swallow 50 feet of my land. My well, my bridge. I went down to their model home office where some kid with perfect teeth chirped, "Oh, yes, sir. The developer is annexing adjacent parcels for uniform standards. Exciting," he called it. Exciting for who I asked. He rattled off a list of rules: no tractors, no chickens, no outbuildings, no disruptive agricultural activity. I told him my tractor was older than him and still ran better. He just smiled and handed me a binder of covenants thick enough to choke a mule. I read every page. That's what the Army drilled into me, read the manual, then read it again. The language was a spiderweb, neat, pretty, but strong where it needed to strangle. Agriculture incompatible with community expectations. They wanted my land without asking. At the county recorder's office, I found they'd filed annexation paperwork with a map error, conveniently giving them control of my well and bridge. I hired a lawyer, Ms. Barnes. She wore boots, not heels, and told me straight annexation without consent. That's dirty, but they'll try. Keep records, stay calm, document everything. So I prepared. I built Thunderbolt my name for a checklist system, not a weapon. Cameras with off-site backups, steel survey posts, copies of every deed, every plat. I trained Ranger. I told neighbors if they saw a lot of cars and me not smiling, call Barnes. And I baked bread, brought it to Cheryl Whitman's mansion at the top of the hill and said, "Welcome to the neighborhood. I keep bees. Need honey knock." She looked at the loaf like I'd handed her a snake. "Thank you," she said, and set it aside like trash. Weeks later, the letters started. Cease farm activities. Notices of fines. Then, emergency community action, immediate possession. I laughed at the audacity, but when the tow truck circled my driveway and orange flags appeared by my fence, I stopped laughing. Fear isn't weakness. It's your body begging for a plan. So I kept calm, made checklists, cleaned. The porch light filled the diesel tank on the generator. Then one morning, here they came, SUVs, vans, trucks, and Cheryl with her smug face announcing she was taking possession today. Her men fanned out one with bolt cutters heading for the barn. Ranger growled. The tow truck revved toward my old Ford, the truck I rebuilt with my dad before he got too sick to hold a wrench. My throat tightened. That wasn't just steel, that was memory. Last chance, I told her. She smiled and said, "Proceed." I pressed the second button. Thunderbolt Stage 2. The porch speaker announced, "This property is under video and audio recording. Please state your authority." The men hesitated, looking at the cameras. Cheryl waved at the tow driver. The flatbed kissed my Ford's bumper. I almost broke right there. My chest ached. My father's voice, my childhood summers about to be hauled off. For a flicker of a moment, I thought, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should just give in. Maybe I don't belong here anymore. My knees felt weak. I wanted to quit. But then the radio crackled. "County deputy on the way." A neighbor's text came in. "Need backup. I'm close." Ranger leaned against my leg, steady as stone. That tiny act snapped me out of it. No, I wasn't crazy. They were. This land was mine. I stood tall again. When Deputy Cole arrived, Cheryl tried waving glossy HOA papers at him. He squinted and said flat, "This isn't a court order. It's a flyer." The tow truck shut down. Cheryl's smile cracked. I almost grinned, almost. Then came the bulldozer. A yellow beast crawling toward my old wooden bridge escorted by a pickup with orange flashers. Cheryl lifted her chin and cooed. "It's just a safety improvement, Mr. Carter." My blood boiled. That bridge wasn't just wood. It was Sunday fishing with Dad hauling hay with Grandpa, the place where I kissed a girl with fireflies all around. The dozer's blade dropped with a clank. Gravel sprayed. The bridge groaned. "Stop, Deputy," Cole barked. The driver didn't. I raised my phone, catching every number, every angle. "That bridge is mine," I said, voice sharp but calm. Pierce, their slick lawyer, muttered about emergency authority. Cole cut him off. "You need a judge." The dozer paused. Relief almost came until a process server shoved a stack of papers at me. Emergency temporary restraining order. 72 hours. They claimed my bridge was unsafe, gave HOA temporary control. My heart sank. Reading it, my vision blurred. 3 days might as well have been a death sentence. Maybe I'm finished, I thought. Maybe I can't win. But then neighbors appeared. Caleb, firefighter shirt on live streaming. Kids on scooters chanting, "Save the bridge," Mrs. Thompson with her cane telling them they'd have to go through her first. And the twist I never expected, Cheryl's own husband, Dr. Whitman, stepping forward from the crowd. "Cheryl, what are you doing? You're destroying the community, not saving it." The crowd gasped. The tide shifted. Barnes rolled up in her pickup like a cavalry charge, waving fresh documents, corrected county maps proving the bridge was fully mine, plus a call lined up with Judge Ramirez himself. Cheryl's face went pale. The bulldozer, though, had already scarred the bridge. A beam snapped. Planks tumbled into the creek. Kids screamed. My heart broke, watching half the bridge collapse into the water. Pierce smirked. Unsafe structure abated for the good of the community. I wanted to hit him. Instead, Barnes put her phone on speaker. The judge's face appeared on screen. What in God's name is going on at Creek Road? We all froze. The deputy testified HOA equipment had damaged my bridge. Barnes handed up photos, inspection records, maps. The judge's voice dropped low, dangerous. So, the HOA destroyed private property outside its boundary, claiming authority. It never had. Pierce stammered about eminent domain. Ramirez snapped. "Only governments have that power. If you misrepresent it otherwise, you're skating on fraud." Cheryl's stiff smile vanished. Her husband shook his head in shame. The crowd started chanting louder this time. "Save the farm! Save the farm!" Judge Ramirez slammed it down. Effective immediately. The HOA is restrained from any further action on Mr. Carter's property. No machines, no fences, no tow trucks. Deputy, enforce it. Cole almost smiled when he said, "Yes, Your Honor." Pierce tried to speak, but Ramirez raised a finger. Not a word. And just like that, Cheryl and her army were finished. Engines shut off. The bulldozer sat useless, the tow truck idle. Neighbors stood on my side. Even the lineman admitted he'd testify. Cheryl's face was chalk white, Pierce's smirk gone. The bridge was broken, but their power was broken worse. That's where it ended, at least for that day. HOA trucks retreating their so-called authority shattered in front of everyone. I stood at the edge of my land bridge, splintered heart still burning. I didn't win everything, but I won enough, and I learned this. Power only works if you let it.